This is Jill Pack with the Seasons of Joy podcast, and this is episode number 74 entitled Emotional Adulthood. Are you a woman of faith who is struggling to navigate your current season of life? Do you feel like life is just happening to you instead of for you? My name is Jill Pack. I'm a certified life coach and a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I want you to know that no matter your season or circumstance, it is possible to create a more joyful life. And I would love to show you how. Are you ready? Let's go. Hello, friends. Welcome to today's episode of the Seasons of Joy podcast. Before we get started, I wanted to let you know that the registration is now open for my upcoming retreat. An awakening retreat will be held in Garden City, Utah, near the beautiful Bear Lake. It will be held October 5th through 7th, and it is an opportunity to refocus on what is important to you, an opportunity to reconnect with yourself, with others, and with God. And it's an opportunity to rejuvenate so that you can step into your life with confidence. You can find all the information on my website, www.seasons-coaching.com/retreat, or at the link posted in the show notes. I would love to have you join me for this awesome experience. Now on to this week's episode. I want to talk about the concept of emotional maturity. You may have heard this concept before, or maybe you haven't. It doesn't sound that interesting, but understanding this concept is life-changing. Everything that I teach, in a way, points to this concept. So let's define emotional adulthood. This is when we take responsibility for our emotions and our feelings, which help us maintain control of our own happiness while we progress through this earthly experience. If there is emotional adulthood, then it's safe to assume that there is emotional childhood. Understanding the difference between the two allows you to enjoy your relationships with yourselves, others, and God. You become the creator of your life. The truth is, we are the ones who are responsible for how we feel all of the time. We are in charge of how we think and how we feel. However, when we're operating in emotional childhood, we blame other people for how we feel, how we act, and what we are experiencing in our life. Sadly, there are many people walking around in emotional childhood. I didn't learn about emotional adulthood when I was growing up. There wasn't a class in high school or college that I could take to become an emotional adult. I didn't know that I had the ability to think about my thinking. I didn't know that I could choose what I thought or how I felt at any given moment, no matter what the people around me were doing. If I had known this, I would have saved myself a lot of suffering. So that is why I do what I do. I want to show people what their life could look like if they knew that they have the ability to create a life on purpose and one of meaning. And that is partly done by taking responsibility for our thoughts, feelings, and actions. When we're children, we only think about ourselves, right? We believe that everything that is going on in our life actually causes our feelings. This belief is reinforced by how we're raised. We're told that we can hurt someone else's feelings or that we make others feel bad. This way of thinking is so ingrained and natural that we don't even realize that we are reinforcing this to each other when we blame others for how we feel. As children, we don't have the capacity to make this distinction. But not only that, there are so many adults that operate emotionally as children that it just carries on through their adulthood. This is so disempowering, and it keeps us in emotional childhood and blame. And this leads us to blame everyone and everything in our life, whether it is the government, the economy, our bosses, other people, our ex-spouses, our mothers, our fathers, our childhood, our adult children, or even our friends. We blame everyone for why we feel the way we feel and for our behaviors and our life experiences. For me, a lot of my feelings of frustration and self-pity in the past came from a place of blame. I was blaming my adult children for my unhappiness because of their choices. Really, I wasn't taking responsibility for my feelings. I wasn't feeling my feelings. I was wallowing in them, feeling sorry for myself, believing that if they would do differently, then life would be better. I was functioning in emotional childhood, wanting them to take responsibility for me. Now, there are times that we are an emotional adult and we still feel frustrated or sad. That's part of being human. We're going to feel those things sometimes, and that is totally okay. That's not what I'm talking about today. I'm talking about when we find ourselves operating from those emotions all of the time, coming from a place of disempowerment, when we're believing that we feel like we don't have control over our emotional well-being and we hand over that responsibility to someone else, right? That can cause us so many problems. For example, let's say I give my emotional well-being over to my husband. It's like I'm saying, you're responsible for my happiness, or you're responsible for my frustration or sadness, or you're responsible for everything that causes me to be emotional. When I'm in this place, I'm always going to be trying to control him so that I can feel better. I'm going to always be trying to tell him what to do and how to do it. I will be mad most of the time when he doesn't do what I want, and my emotions will be all over the place because, again, I'm trying to control him. This is so disempowering and feels terrible because we can't control anybody else. Most people don't like to be controlled, no matter how hard we try. If I expect my husband to meet all of my needs, in a way, I become a dependent child, giving him a list of needs that he needs to meet so that I can be happy. He could do the same thing for me. Then we have put each other in charge of the other person's happiness. This doesn't mean that we don't make requests of each other. Of course we do, right? But we do things for each other because we love each other. But when our emotional well-being is the other person's responsibility, we are in emotional childhood. This affects our relationships in a painful way because we're delegating our happiness to someone else. I heard it once said this way: what if we decide to meet our own needs and let the other person meet their own needs, and then we come together and we have a really good time? We don't expect the other person to manage our emotional life because it's hard to do, right? It's hard to do it for ourselves, let alone for another person. Emotional adulthood means that we are each responsible for our own happiness. We're responsible for our own unhappiness. We are responsible for when our feelings get hurt and for our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Now, this doesn't mean we aren't responsible for how we treat people. When we're in emotional adulthood, we don't act in a way that is mean or unkind to other people. We don't react in anger or have temper tantrums. We don't base our reactions on trying to get them to behave in a certain way so that we can feel better. Trying to control other people in order to feel better never works and only causes tension and suffering in our relationships. Emotional adulthood is letting people behave how they want and behaving how you want. It's taking responsibility for all of your actions and feelings. You may still show up as not your best or in a way you regret later, but that doesn't mean you're not going to take responsibility and apologize for how you treat another person. It means we don't blame other people for how we show up in our life. However, it's so important to not go from blaming others to blaming ourselves for any thoughts or feelings or actions that you don't like, believing that you are a terrible person. That's not the purpose of this work. It's learning to understand that you are feeling a certain way because of the way you are thinking. If you are acting a certain way, it's because of the way you are thinking. Curiosity is the way forward, and you can do it with love and compassion. Being kind to yourself will create greater change than beating yourself up ever will. This awareness gives you the opportunity to do something different in your life. Emotional childhood usually leads us to showing up in our life in a way we end up regretting. We don't take responsibility for it because we feel so horrible about it. Emotional adulthood allows us to take responsibility for how we feel so that we are less likely to show up in a way we will regret later. But when we do make mistakes, we own them completely and we apologize. This is such a more empowering place to be, a place where you have complete power over your own life to create something amazing. When we take responsibility for ourselves, this actually frees us to look outside of ourselves and see where we can serve, to be and do good in the world. When I started taking responsibility for my emotions and my actions, my life changed. Do I still have moments of emotional childhood? For sure. But I experience it so much less. I'm in a better place to love and serve others. By taking ownership of my happiness, I am so much happier, and I would add a lot more fun to be around. I think the Savior is the perfect example of emotional childhood. He went about doing good and had the ability and capacity to do all he did for us because of that. Everything he did was because of love. He knew we were going to make mistakes and struggle. And while on earth, he actually spent most of the time with those who were considered sinners and unclean. It didn't affect how he treated them. He had compassion and love for them. Did he want them to follow and to become like him? Of course, but he never tried to force or control them. He taught, encouraged, and invited. He does the same for us. He invites us to follow and be like him. I believe that when we operate from emotional adulthood, we are better able to accept and act on his invitation to be like him. So here are some questions to consider. Are there places in your life where you can see yourself acting like an emotional child? Where are you placing blame in your life? Where are you not taking responsibility? And how can you take more responsibility? And what would your life be like if you could stop blaming others and take responsibility for how you think, feel, and act, and ultimately the results in your life? This isn't easy work, but it's so worth it. If you want help doing this, I would love to be your coach. So schedule a free discovery call with me and let's chat. This is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for being here and have a joyful week. Thank you so much for listening. If you like what you hear, I would love it if you would share it with your friends and family and leave me a rating and review. If you'd like to learn more about what life coaching is, please schedule a free discovery call with me where we can work together through something that's causing you a problem. Just go to my website, seasons-coaching.com, and you can also find information about my Seasons of Joy one-on-one coaching program and my Seasons of Joy community. Have a joyful week, and I'll see you next time.